My name is Claire. I'm from a small coastal town in Oregon, and if there's one thing life taught me, it's that not every mother loves the way a mother should, and not every fight ends when someone dies. You don't deserve a damn thing, she hissed, slamming her palm on the kitchen table so hard the china rattled. You think just because she married you, this house belongs to you? Her voice stabbed through the stillness like a fire alarm in a funeral home. I didn't flinch. Not because it didn't hurt, but because pain had stopped being loud the moment my wife stopped breathing. Now it was just a cold flame burning steady behind my ribs. I guess you have everything, she sneered, looking around the kitchen like it was a garage sale she'd been forced to attend. But we both know who really built this. Who raised her. Who sacrificed everything for her future. Not you. Me. Her lipstick was too perfect for a funeral. Her nails like glass-tipped daggers. She hadn't shed a single tear. And now, barely a day after the service, she stood here, demanding. She shoved the paper across the table. A list. Her wish list. Jewelry. Heirlooms. Titles. The coastal property we never even stayed in because my wife said it held too many ugly memories. I picked it up slowly. Folded it in half. Then again. I didn't tear it, not yet. I wanted her to see me holding it. Wanted her to feel the weight of silence I was wrapping around her words. You think folding that makes it disappear, she scoffed, stepping closer. You might have been her husband, but I'm her mother. That house, that car, even the silver, those are my daughter's legacy. You were just a placeholder. I stood. You want to fight? I said, voice low, steady. Then let's fight. But not here. Not in front of her photo. You want to take something from me? Try. Her eyes narrowed. Her perfume, something expensive, sickly sweet, filled the space between us like poison gas. I knew you were weak, she spat. You never stood up to her. You let her get sick. You let her suffer. Careful, I said. My voice cracked for the first time, not from weakness, but from fury carefully caged for months. Say her name again with that mouth, and I swear I'll show you what suffering feels like. She blinked. Something shifted. Maybe she saw it, that I wasn't the grieving widower anymore. I was the man my wife trusted to finish what she couldn't. She never even told me she was dying, her mother snapped, pivoting like she was trying to reclaim control. What kind of daughter does that? The kind that's afraid of the person who raised her, I said. That shut her up. Just for a breath. But she rallied. That's your version. And it's cute, really. But without proof, without documents, without a will in your name, you're just a man living in a house that doesn't belong to him. I moved then. Not fast. Deliberate. I stepped around her, each footfall echoing in the silence like a war drum, to the cabinet. Behind the fridge. She didn't follow at first. I think a part of her thought I was bluffing. But when she saw the black box come out, the tape wrapped around it like a warning, she straightened. What is that? Her voice was still sharp, but there was a crack forming beneath it. I set it on the table. Her last gift, I said. To you. She didn't sit. She hovered, like the box might detonate. But her fingers reached out, drawn like a magnet to what she thought was power. Inside wasn't money. Not property deeds. Not jewelry. It was a letter. A flash drive. A photograph. Her as a child. Bruised. Arms crossed. Silent rage in her eyes. What is this? She whispered, the photo trembling in her hands. I sat back down. Let her stand there. Let her decide if she'd dare to read the letter. She did. Not fast. Like every word stabbed her lungs. Like each sentence pulled a thread she'd spent her life hiding beneath pearls and expensive perfume. She didn't speak. Because the letter, my wife's final message, said everything. All the memories she buried, all the abuse, the manipulation, the lies. The promise she'd made to herself to never let her mother win. Not in life. Not in death. The last line sealed it. If you're reading this, it means he was stronger than you thought. And I chose right. She gasped, barely a sound. Like the oxygen had vanished. Then the teacup fell. Shattered. Porcelain everywhere. She turned, stiff as iron. Walked toward the door. Didn't speak. Didn't beg. Didn't dare touch a single thing on that list. She left. The storm outside opened up just as the door closed. And the house? It exhaled. Not loud. Like a bruise under bandages, quiet, dark, honest. Sometimes, grief doesn't break you, it rebuilds you. If you've ever had to fight quietly for someone who trusted you, share this story. Because love doesn't end in silence. It ends in fire. And sometimes, the softest ones carry the strongest matches. She knew. Long before the diagnosis. Long before the coughing started, or the weight began to melt off her frame like wax under a flame. My wife knew exactly who her mother was, and what she would do the moment her shadow stretched long enough to reach this house. That's why she prepared. She didn't leave me with love letters. There were no tear-stained notes tucked under pillows, no final playlist or romantic riddles. That wasn't her way. Sentiment wasn't safe in her world. She left me with instructions. 3 envelopes, each one sealed with red wax, numbered in her handwriting. One was labeled, "If she shows up early." The second, "If she brings a lawyer." And the third, "If I die, and you're not ready." I opened the third the day after the funeral. Not because I wasn't ready, I wasn't, but because grief makes you look for anything that feels like purpose. Inside, no greetings. No, my love. No poetry. Just a single page. Bullet points. Passwords. Storage unit keys. The code to the floor safe I didn't know existed. And one line, underlined twice. Protect what's mine, not from strangers, from her. And she meant it. Because my wife wasn't weak. She was wounded, sure. But she was the kind of woman who built armor around her softness, and trusted me enough to hold the blueprint after she was gone. It was a quiet evening in February when she told me the truth. Before things got worse. When we still had time to pretend the chemo might work. We were in the bedroom, curled up under too many blankets, as snow tapped the windows like someone outside was too scared to knock. Her voice was hoarse. But not from sickness, from history. She's going to come for everything, she said. Not because she cares. But because she can't stand the idea of me leaving something behind that isn't hers. I turned to her. She stared at the ceiling like it might collapse. You mean your mother? I mean the woman who wore the title, but never earned it. Her words were sandpaper. Rough, but honest. I didn't interrupt. She used to lock me out of the house when I was 10, she said. Said it was character building. One time it rained for hours. I sat on the porch shivering while she watched TV. When I cried, she laughed. My throat tightened. You never told me, I whispered. I didn't want to be the girl with mommy issues, she shrugged. Didn't want pity. I just wanted to build a different story. She looked at me then. Eyes glassy, but fierce. You're my different story. I kissed her knuckles. Silent. Because what could I possibly say to someone who had survived that and still chosen to love? She pulled her wedding ring off slowly that night. Not because she stopped loving me, but because she needed me to understand what was coming. When I go, she said, you're going to think you're alone. But you won't be. I'll leave you what you need. Not love letters. Tools. Because I trust you more than I ever trusted anyone. And I know my mother. She won't cry. She'll calculate. And when she does, I want you to remember. Her voice broke. I held her close. Remember what? I asked. That you were the only thing in my life that felt safe. Don't let her twist that. Not in death. Not in court. Not ever. And then she cried. That night. The only time I ever saw her truly cry. Not from pain. Not from fear. But because she finally believed someone might actually protect her story, not rewrite it for comfort. So when her mother showed up, days after the funeral, in heels and a predator's smile, I wasn't surprised. I was prepared. Not strong, not yet. But steady. And sometimes, that's enough. She always said people like her mother don't show up to grieve, they show up to claim. And she was right. She walked through the house like she was taking inventory. Her eyes skipped the photos. Skipped the urn. Skipped every memory that didn't serve her narrative. I could feel her thoughts. What can I get from this? What's mine? What did she hide? But my wife had already seen that coming. The safe in the floor. It wasn't under the bed. It was behind the laundry chute in the attic, disguised as a vent panel. Inside, copies of everything. The real will. The account ledgers. A notarized video. And yes, the letter I gave her mother. It wasn't for drama. It was for closure. But not the kind you cry over. The kind you bleed through. That letter was her truth. Every lie her mother ever told. Every bruise. Every silence. The threats, the control, the emotional blackmail. All of it, laid out in her own handwriting, without apology. Because she didn't need to be understood anymore. She just needed to end the cycle. People think death erases the past. It doesn't. Death magnifies the truth. It peels back the pleasantries. And if you're not ready, it will burn you alive in all the lies you thought would stay buried. But my wife? She didn't die quietly. She left a trail of matches. And she trusted me to light the last one. It was supposed to be simple. That's what she said when she made the video. My death shouldn't be the beginning of a war. But it was. Because people like her mother don't mourn. They move in. The will reading never happened. Because there wasn't one, not in the traditional sense. No lawyers gathered. No pens clicked. No tears fell around a polished oak table. What there was a flash drive. Buried in that black box beside the photograph and letter. Just a silver sliver of plastic. But inside it, a nuclear bomb. I didn't open it in front of her mother. That wasn't the time. No, that night, after the door shut, after her perfume faded from the walls, after I cleaned the shattered porcelain off the floor with shaking hands, I locked every door, drew the curtains, and pressed play. It was my wife. Not sick. Not pale. Not dying. Alive. Brave. Honest. She'd recorded it months before the cancer took her voice. Sitting at her old writing desk in a hoodie and jeans, hair pulled back, no makeup, no mask. "Hi," she said into the camera. "If you're watching this, I'm probably gone." And she probably came. I swallowed hard. Sat down. Let her speak. She'll tell you she deserves everything. That she was my rock, my provider, my reason. That you were temporary. But let me be clear, you were the only real thing I had. She paused, eyes glinting. You held my hair back when I threw up after chemo. You held my hand when I signed my DNR. You read me novels when I couldn't sleep. She sent flowers. You cooked soup. Her voice cracked. But she didn't look away. I never had a real home until I met you. I never had a real family until we made one. So whatever she says, whatever she demands, this is me saying it out loud, I chose you. Not just in love, not just in marriage, in legacy. I couldn't breathe. She continued. This flash drive has everything. The real will. The video statement. The passwords. I didn't put your name on everything because I forgot, I did it because I trusted you to protect it. To protect me. Even after I'm gone. She smiled then. Just a little. She'll try to tell you the cottage is hers. That the jewelry was passed down. That the house was bought with her help. It wasn't. I kept receipts. I kept screenshots. I kept everything. She looked down, then back up. Eyes fierce. She abused me. She'll deny it. She'll cry and play the grieving mother. But behind the scenes, she controlled everything, until I got old enough to say no. That's when she cut me off. When I met you, she said you'd never last. She said I was wasting my time on a man who didn't know how to win. She exhaled slowly. But you did win. Because love isn't loud, it's loyal. And when the vultures come, I want you to remember something. She leaned in. Her voice dropped to a whisper. They can't steal what was never theirs. Then she reached forward. The screen went black. The next morning, the phone rang. I already knew who it was. Claire, her mother said, tight-lipped and brittle. We need to talk. About what? I asked, staring at the box on the counter. You know what? I spoke to my attorney. The house is in my name, I interrupted. Calm. Cold. So is the car. So is the land. So is the silver you keep circling like a hungry crow. There was a long silence. Then, she wouldn't do that. No. I said, standing. Walking toward the kitchen window. Because she did. And she recorded herself saying so. You're lying. I'm not. You manipulated her. She made the video 6 months before she died. You have no idea what she really wanted. That was when I snapped. No, I said, louder now, voice breaking through the dam. You don't get to rewrite this. Not this time. You lost your daughter long before the cancer. You lost her the day you made her fear you more than death. And I won't let you erase the last thing she ever tried to protect. She didn't respond. Because she couldn't. Because the truth. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just stands, quietly, unshakable, and lets the liars wear themselves out. I'll see you in court, she said finally. No, I said. You won't. Because everything's documented. Everything's sealed. And if you try to contest it. I paused. Then I'll release the video. Silence. Then the line went dead. She didn't call back. She didn't show up again. She didn't even send flowers on the anniversary. Maybe it was shame. Maybe it was fear. Or maybe it was the first time in her life someone closed the door before she could burn down the room. Grief doesn't end with a funeral. It ends in the moments when you realize the love someone gave you was meant to last longer than their life. My wife left me pain. But she also left me power. Not the kind you flaunt. The kind you wield quietly, like armor under a cardigan. The kind that says, I may be soft, but I am not weak. It had been 3 weeks since she left. 3 weeks since her mother walked out that door, shattered porcelain in her wake, no apology, no explanation, just a hurricane of entitlement followed by a silence I didn't mind living in. She didn't call again. Didn't show up. Didn't even send a lawyer. And that was fine. Because I had something she didn't, truth. And truth doesn't need to scream. It just waits, until everything else collapses under its weight. But even after the dust settled, there was one thing I hadn't touched. One envelope I hadn't dared to open. It was taped to the back of the black box. Labeled in her handwriting, soft, slanted, just a little shaky near the edges. Only when you're ready. I wasn't. Not when I found it. Not after the funeral. Not after the flash drive. Not even after her mother walked out with her pride in pieces. But that night, 3 weeks later, after the storm, after the fear, after the fire. I sat at her old desk, laid the envelope down, and just stared at it for a while. I must have whispered her name 5 times. And then I opened it. The paper smelled like her. Vanilla, cedarwood, something warm and familiar, something I had been afraid I'd forgotten. She hadn't written much. Just a single page. A final breath. A goodbye not for protection, not for instruction, but just for me. Hey, love. If you're reading this, it means you did it. You protected our life. You stood when I couldn't. You stayed gentle in a war zone, and you made sure I wasn't rewritten by the person who spent their whole life trying to erase me. I know you're hurting. I know grief feels like wearing someone else's skin, like nothing fits right anymore. But please, don't let it swallow you. Don't shrink to survive it. Live big. Laugh loud. Eat the ice cream straight out of the tub if that's what helps. Just, keep going. You don't owe me forever. You owe me one promise. Don't let love die with me. Find it again, even if it takes years. Let someone new in. Someone kind. Someone who doesn't flinch when you cry over an old photo. I'm not gone, not really. I'm just, out of reach. But every time you stand up for yourself, I'm there. Every time you choose peace over pleasing, I'm there. Every time you feel fire instead of fear. That's me. That's us. You were the safest home I ever had. Thank you for loving me when I didn't even know how to love myself yet. I chose right. Every single time. Now go live like you still carry my laugh in your pocket. You do. See. I didn't cry right away. I just sat there, staring at the ink, my hand still gripping the paper like if I let go, she'd disappear all over again. Then I folded it. Carefully. Pressed it to my chest. And cried so hard, I didn't even recognize the sound of my own grief. Grief is a strange thing. It doesn't follow rules. It doesn't respect time. It shows up in the middle of grocery stores, in the scent of someone else's shampoo, in the silence between songs on a playlist you forgot to delete. But it also reveals things. It showed me how many people only loved her when it was convenient. How many pretended grief, but fumbled when truth came calling. How few actually stood, while she fought to stay herself. And how lucky I was, to be the one she chose to trust when the world told her not to. I visited the cottage the next week. The one her mother claimed was rightfully hers. We'd never gone. My wife hated that place, said it was soaked in too many childhood memories with knives behind every smile. But I needed to see it for myself. It was small, tucked into a bluff that overlooked the water. Dust everywhere. The air smelled stale, like secrets and salt. Her name was on the deed. Her name on the mailbox. But her presence? Nowhere. She left it to me legally. But emotionally, it wasn't hers to give, and I didn't want it. So I donated it. To a domestic violence shelter that needed emergency housing. That felt right. Because healing doesn't come from owning what once hurt you. It comes from turning that pain into protection for someone else. She would have smiled at that. Back home, I opened her side of the closet for the first time. Not to clear it out. Just to breathe it in. To remind myself that this house wasn't haunted, it was held. By love. By memory. By the kind of strength people overlook until it's the only thing still standing. I kept one sweater. The blue one. The one with the little coffee stain near the wrist and the faint smell of lavender. Some days, I still wear it when the wind howls too loud and I need to remember that even though the house is quieter now, I'm not alone. Not really. Sometimes the strongest thing we can do for someone we love is to keep living well after they're gone. If this story touched you, if you've ever had to fight quietly through grief or stand up for someone who trusted you, share it. Because legacies aren't written in wills. They're written in the choices we make after goodbye. Some people burn everything they touch. And others? They carry fire differently. My wife wasn't loud. She didn't shout, didn't throw things, didn't make scenes in restaurants. But that didn't mean she was soft. She burned quietly, with focus, with purpose. She was the kind of fire you didn't see coming until it was too late to put it out. When she died, people came to me whispering things like, "She was so gentle. She was too kind for this world. She didn't deserve to go through what she did." And they were right. She didn't. But what they didn't see, what they never saw, was how much she fought just to stay kind. How much of her life was spent surviving people who called themselves family. How hard she had to work to make her softness a choice, not a weakness. They never saw the fire. But I did. Every single day. The day after I read the final letter, I lit a candle in the hallway. A small one. Lavender scent. The kind she used to buy in bulk and forget where she stored. I placed it beneath the photo of us, the one by the cliffs. Wind in her hair. Laughter in her eyes. The ocean breaking behind her like applause. She looked free in that photo. No masks. No shadows. Just, her. I stood there, watching the flame flicker. And it hit me. The match wasn't hers. It was mine. She'd passed it to me. Carefully. Quietly. Trusting that I'd know what to do when the world tried to turn her memory into something it wasn't. And I did. I lit that fire, not to destroy, not to rage, but to defend. To make sure her story didn't end in silence. To make sure the woman who fought so hard to stay true to herself didn't get rewritten by the very person who tried to erase her all along. You don't expect to become someone's legacy. You don't wake up one day and say, "I'm going to be the one who carries their truth." But love isn't always soft. Sometimes love is heavy. Sometimes love is choosing not to stay quiet when the room gets cold and the vultures start circling. Sometimes love means saying, "No. You don't get to pretend you were kind just because she can't speak anymore." Sometimes love means lighting a match in the middle of someone else's storm, and standing there until it burns away everything false. Her mother never came back. She didn't write. Didn't challenge the documents. Didn't even ask for a copy of the will. Because she knew. Deep down, she knew that everything she'd ever tried to control had slipped through her fingers the moment my wife trusted someone other than her. And maybe, for someone like that, silence was the first consequence she'd ever faced. But me? I kept going. Slowly. Quietly. I planted a garden in the backyard. Tore down the wall in the guest room and turned it into a reading nook like she'd always wanted. Donated half her wardrobe to the shelter she loved. And every Sunday morning, I make the tea she liked, Earl Grey, splash of oat milk, 2 sugars, and I sit in her chair, let it go cold, and just listen. Not for her voice. Not anymore. But for the quiet she left behind. It's a different kind of quiet now. Not empty. Not haunted. But earned. Like peace finally has a place to settle. Grief doesn't end. It just changes shape. Some days it feels like a shadow. Other days, like armor. Some mornings, it's heavy and sharp and cruel. But then there are the moments, the golden ones, where you realize you were strong enough to carry someone else's flame without losing your own. That's what she left me. Not wealth. Not land. Not even love, really, that came long before. She left me a reason. To remember. To protect. To rise. And to remind anyone who dares to forget her that even the quiet ones leave behind sparks that never die. So here's my final word. To the ones who try to claim legacies they didn't earn. You can't inherit love. You can't forge grief. And you can't take from the dead what they chose to leave behind. And to anyone like me. Anyone who loved someone the world tried to silence. Anyone who had to protect what couldn't speak for itself. Anyone still carrying a match with shaking hands. Light it. Not to burn. To honor. Because when the smoke clears, when the room empties, when all the pretending stops, truth is the only thing that still stands. And love? Real love? That doesn't fade. It fights. If you've ever had to carry someone's story when they couldn't, if you've ever been underestimated in your grief, or stood alone against those who came to take, know this, your quiet strength speaks volumes. Share this story if you believe real love doesn't die, it defends. Raised fist.